Delicious lunch. And also, just in case if you were not aware, there is also ice cream too, so feel free to stop by and get some of that. Who is ready for some girl talk? That's why we're all here, right? So let's get things started. First, I want to get to our panel discussion by first introducing everybody on the panel. We have a really great group of women here with us today. So Dr. Larissa Ferdinand is a board-certified OBGYN. She's a menopause health expert and also the founder and CEO of the Estrogen Doctor Company. She believes every woman deserves to live a healthy, beautiful life and age gracefully doing so. In 2020, she was named one of the top OBGYN physicians in the Orlando Family magazine. She's also a best-selling contributing author of The Codes of Longevity, Be Ageless, Live Limitless. And she integrates her traditional medical background with advanced anti-aging, femtech health to create personalized and results-driven solutions for women 40 and beyond. Thank you for being here. Our next panelist is Ronice Weaver. In their early beginnings, Ronice Weaver and Fabiola Gaines, they're co-founders of Hebni Nutrition, developed intervention programs and educational tools like the Soul Food Pyramid and Sisters Take Charge of Your Health, which address populations which are at risk for poor health outcomes. She is a registered dietitian and licensed dietitian, and she currently serves as the director of agency operations of Hebni Nutrition Consultants. Notably, in 2011, she was selected to participate in Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign at the White House, and she was requested to provide health initiatives for school-aged children. Dr. Candice Jones is a board-certified physician practicing as a general pediatrician in Orlando. She promotes wellness in the community. She has a special interest in medical media because of its educational reach, which provides a standard of care that enriches the lives of thousands of kids and parents and also promotes wellness in the community. Dr. Jones is committed to the health and well-being of the underserved youth, and she also supports various charitable organizations, children's health initiatives, and she also promotes wellness in the community. And last but certainly not least, Shirley Dorsey is a public speaker. She's a award-winning online creative and renowned as the voice of Black and Caribbean millennials. She is a sought-after pre-licensed relationship and family therapist. She creates a safe space for adultish individuals who are navigating the journey of all the ships in life, which are, of course, the friendships, the family relationships, romantic relationships. And she also mends family bonds, strengthening healthy millennial relationships and debunking relationship myths. Thank you for being here. So again, we have a great group of women here. I also want to give you a little background on myself because I think it's relevant to this conversation today. Again, my name is Christy. I'm with Fox 35. I am new to the area. I just started here about 2 months ago or so. So this is my first events that I'm doing in the community. So thank you all so much for welcoming me here and having me a part of it. I truly cannot think of a better event for me to be part of, especially for my first one here. And that is because part of my journey here to Orlando has a lot of health background in it. So this is the first time I'm actually sharing this story, but basically I got COVID in January and I was pretty sick when I had it. And when I tried to go back to work, I was working in Buffalo, New York as a news anchor there. And I solo anchored an hour and a half of news a day. So when I went back to work, I realized that it was really difficult to do with the shortness of breath that I was experiencing. So I took a leave. I ended up taking a leave from work. I was also experiencing a lot of like the mental health aspects of that as well. And it was a very confusing time for me. One of the very first things that I thought of while I was experiencing this is, once I get through this, I want to help to raise awareness to this sort of thing. For me, as a news anchor, it's my job to provide people information. And I can't tell you in that time of my life how confusing things were and how difficult it was for me to figure out what was going on for me and how to get that information. So again, I just want to thank you guys for having me here and having me a part of this, because it absolutely means a lot to me. Okay, so let's get started with these questions here. For the panel, obviously, some of these questions will be directed towards specific people, but please, all of you, feel free to chime in specifically if there's something that you want to share. This first question is for everybody. Why is girl talk so important?
Oh, so you're like looking at me.
No, you're just the
I got
closest.
it. I don't know if it's working. Can you hear me? Ooh. That's me.
Do we have to push?
It's on.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Hello, hello. All right, awesome. All right. Okay, so I personally feel like girl talk is important because it allows for groups of women to kind of like pass down information, spread wisdom, and help other individuals, specifically women and girls, kind of like navigate those common issues that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. I can think back to times where I felt completely lost. I didn't have anybody to share anything with me, and being able to be in spaces like this with women who are willing to open up and tell you about health, wellness, and everything else that surrounds that is super helpful. So I think that's why.
I echo that. Girl talk is everything. It's love, it's support, it's honesty, it's fun. Crazy. It's everything you need. And so have a lot of girl talk, but pick your girls wisely.
Ooh.
Girl talk reminds me of an event that Fabiola and I created over 20 years ago in Central Florida called Sisters Take Charge. And so I give the city and Bakari and Carolyn much credit to keep the message going on, because women, we put ourselves last and we don't always put ourselves first in line to take care of ourselves. So it's a forum for us to educate, share, care, and love, and take that information back to our families. We are always in control of many things that we do, but a forum like this also helps us to understand how do we take charge of our families and keep everything in check.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with everything that was already mentioned on the panel, but one of the things that always sits out for me when we're talking about girl talk, it's an experience. You know, I just feel like depending on where you are or whom you with, it's a share of a dialogue that is a cultural shared experience. And it just depends on what you can exchange. It's like a bi-directional, that's what dialogue is. And so when you're able to share experiences, especially when you have elders in the room and generational things, I mean, it's only magic that can happen. So I truly involve with the experience with the dialogue.
Now this next question is again for everyone, so whoever wants to jump in first. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it has absolutely taught us that no one is immune to the struggles from mental or physical health. How important is having a strong support system and working through the anxiety of things like work, families, and relationships?
Yeah, so I can attest to having to be the backbone for a lot of individuals within these past 2 years. And a lot of times the common struggle amongst everyone else that comes into my therapeutic space is that they lack support system, or they lack the ability to actually go to someone and ask for help, which is common in Black communities specifically, where we just feel like we need to struggle alone. And it's kind of like a misdirection if we go towards someone else to ask for support. However, support during this time, and I feel like this time has actually opened up doors for people to realize that support is needed whenever, regardless if there's a pandemic or not. But during the past 2 years, I've seen that the increase in support has kind of like shaped people's realities. So the anxiety around the pandemic has doubled, in my opinion. It's like tripled. Like, we have health anxiety, we have emotional anxiety, we're fearful for both our mental and physical health. And being able to have someone that's in your corner, that's there to say that they're helping you navigate your concerns, health, physically and emotionally, it's life-changing. So if you have someone who's just gonna say, I'm gonna bring you a bowl of soup because you're feeling down, that changes the entire perspective of someone who's feeling not so well, whether it's with the virus or with anything else that's happening in their life, like losing their job or losing a family member. So I lean onto and encourage other people to lean onto their community. And community looks like anything. It could be your church, church friends, your family, your close friends. All of those specific communities are a sense of family. And so it's super important for people to find that support in wherever way that they can.
Right. And tying on to that, I have this conversation in practice as a pediatrician, and oftentimes, of course, I'm talking to the parents or the caregiver of the child. When I see struggle and tension and trouble in the family, one of the main questions I ask is, who do you have to help you with this? Who do you have to take a break that can help take the child? Or maybe it's a new mom dealing with postpartum blues or something. I'm always assessing, like you said, their support system. Who do you have to help you with this? Pick up the child, take a shift so you can go to sleep. Who can you call to cry to? Who can you call to pray with? I'm always trying to help them think about how to build a support system and also empower them to ask for help. It doesn't have to be, I need help. It just could be a phone call, and then I know I can talk to you. I know I can share this with you, and you may or may not agree, but you're gonna support me. I may come out with some pointers or advice or just a sounding board to have empathy with me and make me feel like I'm not alone, right? And so that's what support does. And I also empower parents, no matter what the situation, if it's postpartum depression, I spend a lot of time trying to convince them to talk to someone who is a professional, who has the skills to help them out of this. Not that their girlfriend can't or their mother can't, but why not that too, right? And someone who is going to be objective and unbiased and who knows what the evidence shows of how to get out of that. You need that too, not and or, but both. And so that's what that support looks like.
COVID has taught us a lot from a nutrition perspective. I'm sure many of us in the room got COVID weight gain. I'm one of them. And because of the isolation, and not being able to communicate and get with family members to check on each other, but it also made us look at our community as a whole and what's lacking, what's missing. And when you look at social determinants of health, how do we stack up compared to other communities? That was a stressor to me because on CNN, they start to talk about comorbidities. And we're realizing as minority women, we are suffering from more than just COVID. We have all these other underlying conditions that we've not addressed. And that's a stressor, and it just creates more problems down the road. And it was a wake-up call for many people in my immediate family, but also our community we serve.
Absolutely. One thing I feel for sure is that even though we're still in this pandemic, I really don't feel it'll be our last. And as women, oftentimes the hardest question or the hardest statement is, I need blank, all right? And then another component of it is COVID and this pandemic exposed things that we had been putting Band-Aid fixes on, all right? And so now you have this open wound affecting largely the top commodities of our life, which is our time, our energy, our relationships, and our money. And if you impact those commodities, you're impacting women in such a way that you gotta fill in that blank. I need blank, and that support system ends up being the biggest thing that we needed to tap into, because we are the backbone of the infrastructure as far as I'm concerned. You heal women, you heal communities. You heal women, you heal the economy. You heal women, you heal the world. So that's my belief. And part of that too has to do with making sure that the support that we need and the resources we need are available. And what Christy had just said, I understand, even being a physician, navigation in a healthcare system is very complicated. And it exposed some of the inadequacies that we have. I mean, there's no perfect systems. We try to gather all the things that we can because there's a lot and it's expansive. But if anything, this has been a learning of what are those true commodities we treasure, and also allow us to be, take a hard look at healthcare, where we stand as a people, as we stand as a community, because we're going to only get better from here. But conversations like this are dialogue, and I hope we have an opportunity to actively hear things from the audience, because this is the opportunity that we need in order to continue to heal our communities through our women.
Really important information from all of you. Thank you so much. This next question is from Dr. Larissa. It's important for us to own our health. What information should we be bringing to doctors' appointments, and what kind of questions should we be asking doctors? And what are some of the things that you see that patients are not telling or possibly even withholding at appointments?
So this is a juicy question. I like juicy questions. Like say juice, like you spill the tea type question. I think the biggest thing when you have a doctor's appointment or a health practitioner or provider that you're going to see is self-preparation and self-advocacy, all right? That is truly important. So when you're preparing, that's anywhere between making sure that your records have arrived to whatever that specialist is. I'm sure any of us have had the experience. I have had the experience of being a patient as much as a physician and thinking that the transfer of information has made it from A to Z, and it may not. And then you feel like you've taken this time off of work and you've done this and you've parked and you've paid your copay just for someone to sit in front of you, and you feel like, was I valued? Was I understood? Was I even heard? Those are the feelings, that's the raw feelings that I know exist. So self-preparation and self-advocacy are very important in any preparation of going to a provider, from, like I said, records that needs to be there or having your own copy. I'm a big one. Make copies. I love patients that come in with binders, and we're able to engage. It's just like if you coupon, you're preparing to go to the store, same thing, And I think this is very vital. Another thing is your medications. Understanding it from medications and your vitamins. I will have people who will come in and don't even think medications are part of that communication that you should have, because I'm not saying all vitamins are bad. Actually, I support supplements, but it may not be the right supplement kind that is working with the current medication that you're taking. And another one might be best for you. So making sure you're prepared in that way. And then the third component, when we talk about self-advocacy, one of the things I've been sharing recently is that oftentimes as a physician, you only have like this short moment with patients. At the same time, you have SEO all day. All right? Meaning that you've hit Dr. Google and that search button more than you have in that office. All right? And so when that happens, you already have a flood of questions that you want to ask. Write them down. Make sure it's more targeted with it, because whatever you've searched in that button, in that column, probably is a question you need to ask while you're in front of your physician. So if those are things that I had to earmark as far as preparing and knowing that, hey, I'm ready and we can have a dialogue and exchange, is to make sure you self-prepare and self-advocate for yourself.
I love to Because, I mean, we can go on and on, right? All that she said. And what I see and practice is that, but also bringing your attention to the visit. And so I walk in a room and you're on your phone or having a conversation on your phone, you're not ready, right? If you keep looking at your phone and taking calls and taking texts, you're not ready. And so if you have prepared for the visit, you have your list, you know your medications, you have your concerns, then be ready, right? Be ready to unload and tell the doctor, I have some concerns that I want to talk about today, and don't be intimidated. That lets me know, sit on down. She's got some things she needs to talk about. I'm not going to run in and run out on you because you told me you have some concerns. Be honest. We are not, I'm talking about me and this doc down here. We are not judging you. If you ain't taking your medicine, please tell me. And then my question will be, why? Because it's not judging you, it's because is it giving you a headache or is it making you nauseous? Did you hear something about the side effects? And maybe there's something else or a tweak or something that we need to talk about. So be honest, because honesty lets me reset and know how to treat you best. I'm not here to judge, right? I'm not. Then my last two was go to your doctor yearly for well visits to keep you well, right? But when things come up in between time, in the meantime, go in. Don't hold all that stuff all year and then come in with 20 things you want to talk to the doctor about because they can't do it. And you're going to get the short end of the stick. Don't wait. Go in for your concerns. That's one of the things that, she's been having headaches. Okay, how long has that been going on? I'm thinking a month, past 2 weeks. Oh, it's been the whole year. And I'm like, really? You should have come in. We could have talked about that. So that, and then don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated. You are the patient. You have insurance. Or if you don't have insurance, it is your right to get quality care. Be indignant about that. Be professional, but be indignant about that, right? And if you're not getting what you need or want, report it. Call the insurance company, ask for an office manager or a patient care coordinator, and in that moment, share with them what you were concerned about. That's the only way we're going to fix the stuff that's going on. If you felt like the doctor was biased against you or you weren't heard, by all means, report that.
So I wanted to come in from a mental health perspective because I noticed that there's not a lot of conversations about what to bring to therapy. So a lot of times my clients come in with nothing and I'm the one asking all the questions, which is fine. I get it. Like, you're nervous. This is something that's new. There's a stigma surrounding it. So you don't really know what to do. So ask. One of the common things that come up in therapy that are different per clinician, which makes the experience different per person, is our interventions. So what are we going to use in therapy to help you? You can ask us that. Like, you have full permission to say, what are you going to do to help me overcome this mental health concern? And if it's something that you don't understand, please ask us to give you psychoeducation. We can send you a document that explains it, but also take one full session to explain it, if that's what you want, of course. In therapy, you are the driver. You're driving the vehicle. I am in the passenger side, directing you with Miss GPS, okay? So I am the person that's like, make that right turn. Oh, you almost hit a cone, make a left. But I am not driving that vehicle. So a lot of the things that happen in therapy is based on what you want to do, and I'm helping you navigate your journey. So in that process, Don't forget to tell us what you're doing to cope. A lot of the times I find out 4 months later that someone's self-medicating or they're smoking marijuana, which is fine. You can use cannabis. We don't judge in therapy. We're actually here for you. So if you're using cannabis, we'll give you the best insight on what ways you can wean off of it, or whatever direction you decide to go, we'll help you navigate that. But we're not here to judge you. Also, you're not going to jail for telling me that you use cannabis, okay? I'm not reporting you. I'm not telling nobody that you're using cannabis, okay? So don't forget to communicate expectations. That's a problem in general. We don't communicate expectation with our family, with our partners, with our children. We don't communicate it at all. We just assume. So I'm letting you know, don't assume, communicate your expectations. What do you expect from therapy? And I'm gonna tell you, that's a little irrational, right? I'll be the one to let you know if it's irrational or not. And the last thing, stop Googling your problems, okay? Okay, you're feeling sad, Google's gonna tell you that you're borderline personality disorder, and there's so much that goes into that. You probably don't have that problem. So a lot of my clients will come into therapy, well, Google said, let me tell you about Google, honey. Let me tell you about Google. I have years of experience, evidence-based practices, and information that will help negate what Google told you. Take a second and listen to the person that's in front of you. And if you're unsure, those second and third opinions are always available. Documentation that is actually credible, not WebMD, no offense, is going to be very helpful. Okay, that's it.
I always like to say, don't leave your health to an algorithm.
No.
Understand it's an algorithm. All right.
This next question is for Dr. Jones. Healthcare equity has been on the forefront in our communities, particularly as it relates to women. What are some of the causes of the inequities, and what can be done to address that concern?
The American Academy of Pediatrics released a policy statement. And that's just when all the bigwigs get together and talk about how are we going to address this concern in children's health, right? And they look at the evidence and they look at the studies and they come up with a plan. And it's a lot of people at the table trying to figure it out. And that policy statement, two of the ladies that wrote it, I look to and hold in high regard. One was an attending of mine at Johns Hopkins. And that policy statement clearly talks about that racism is a core driver of health inequity. And we don't talk about that. We know it, but we don't talk about that. It shuts down conversations. It shuts down tables when things are trying to get work out. And I'm gonna tell you how it shows up. It's not blatant N-word racism. It is bias in medicine. You know, when the doctor judges you or treats you a certain way or assumes things about you because of the color of your skin or your culture, that harms people. That's gonna harm your health, especially if it impacts the care that you got. That's a problem. It shows up in policies. If people at the table are making decisions based on stereotypes, assumptions, things that are rooted in racism, the big policy that comes out of that is going to impact your health, your life, where you live, where you work, and where your kids play. It's going to impact every social aspect about you. And so there's so many layers to this onion, but at the core, we know that we have to get to the roots of racism and how it shows up in society so that everyone has equity, opportunity to health, to money, to education, at the schoolhouse, in criminal justice, in every aspect of our life. It's a wonderful policy statement to read. If you can Google that. All capital letters, credible sources. AAP policy statement on racist impact of health in children. And the core is we're trying to make sure our future generations, our children have better health, but it really affects all of us, right? It even talks about the weathering of Black women's bodies and the research we know about preterm labor and infant mortality. That weathering comes from the chronic stress of discrimination, oppression, and racism. And so doctors, pediatricians, members of the AAP are eager to learn and do better for our children and our families and get to the root of this so that we can get this out of our systems and policies.
Does anybody else want to add to that question?
Our biggest concern as a nutrition practice here in Central Florida, it makes no sense for your zip code to determine your health outcomes. It makes no sense. We are living in some communities that don't even have accessibility to fresh fruits and vegetables or a fresh grocery store. If you look in the Paramore community, there is not one grocery store on the west side of I-4 that address, and the 32805 zip code area has one of the worst health numbers that you can ever see. Fabiola and I always have been advocates for promoting health and wellness. We've also launched a mobile market with our Fresh Stop bus and go to these underserved areas in the community to provide fresh fruits and vegetables, because you can put a Whole Foods and a Publix or Walmart in a neighborhood, but if the community can't afford it, they won't access it either. So when you look at social determinants of health, it's all about affordability, accessibility, and those health inequities. Some of it's tied to the way we eat, the way we shop, the way we cook, how we feed our family. Some of them are just doing it on purely survival. And the nutrition part of it is on the back end. We have to address it at the bottom, so when they swim up top, we'll know how to address these health inequities, and food and access is really a core piece of it.
Can I add one thing to what you just said? She just tied it in about right? You just tied it in. But a lot of times I hear, and you're right, when we look at individual health, there is about 20-30%. If you look at a public health model, right? 20-30% of personal responsibility, okay? The way you eat, if you exercise, the things, your behaviors that's affecting your health. But I just want us to get it straight that the largest percentage of people's health is not personal responsibility, it's coming from societal influences, and that gets back to social determinants of health that is driven at the core by the lack of a shared humanity for everyone.
And it's really important for us to come to our city meetings to see how the future is being planned for communities. Before we know about it, it's already planned, it's a done deal. And by that time, it's too late.
Shirley, this next question is actually for you. Women often take care of their families and maintain jobs and also the home. And for some people also have the responsibility of their aging parents as well. Obviously, our own health also matters. So while we're showing up for others, how do we also balance the needs of others without sacrificing our own self-care and our own overall health?
Yeah, so the number one thing that we unfortunately don't practice is boundaries. We don't, it's almost as if we're waiting for someone to give us permission to draw boundaries, right? So we're told that we are supposed to be the backbone of the home. We're supposed to be the person that holds everyone else's weight onto our shoulders because we're strong enough. Our back is strong enough for it. But unfortunately, health-wise, that's not true. We're not strong enough to do it. We try to practice resiliency, but that doesn't mean we're necessarily strong enough to do it. So boundaries come in where people have to advocate for themselves and use the word no. So no doesn't always have to present in actually saying no, all right? It could start off with you saying, not at this time. I'm not comfortable with this. I'm overwhelmed. I have something else to do. I'll consider this another time, right? So if you're uncomfortable with using the word no, I get it. Like, you walking up to someone and saying no is hard. Let's try other alternatives to the word no. When you draw boundaries with your family, it's super important in managing your emotional, physical health. Like the no, I can't pick up Cousin Tay from the airport because I gotta watch my kids is super important for you to acknowledge and challenge. So the challenging part comes in when people are afraid of the actual response to the no. And that's where Black women's urge to people please come in, right? And so we always feel like people have to like us. Unfortunately, if someone doesn't like you because you're too busy taking care of your kids and can't pick up Cousin Tay, that's a personal problem. Personal problem. We need to stop turning other people's personal problems into our own weight. So I'm gonna always encourage for people to practice setting their own boundaries. We're talking time boundaries, material boundaries, sexual boundaries, all types of boundaries need to be applied so that you can stop taking on the burden of everyone else and just hold your own, which is what you're meant to carry on your back.
Does anybody else want to comment?
I love what you said, and boundaries are definitely key. No is a sentence with a period behind it. But one of the things I always talk about, or I like to share with women, is the 3 T's as far as working toward a better health and wellness picture for your life. And the first 2 T's have to do with really evaluating the toxins in the environment and within your foods. The other T, which goes along with boundaries, are toxic people. You know, we know those people that have been in our lives for a season and need to be subtracted because they're not adding anything to your life. And I think that's important because it really does affect us on a mental health level. And especially when it comes to women, one of our biggest sex organs and how everything manipulates, and men too, it starts in the brain. So when you start impacting what starts in the brain, it affects different areas of your life, no matter what. Another component has to do with certain words that we put on ourselves. And one of the dangerous words I feel are out there is should. For some reason, we start putting should in front of a lot of things that we really should not be doing, you know? And with that comes the weathering, the putting more on ourselves than what is so-called expectations. And boundaries help us do that. But I will say it comes with growth. I mean, I'm going to sit here as a 45-year-old woman, and I'm going to tell you that I didn't really learn or cherish boundaries till probably, I don't know, last year, maybe, you know? Those lines were blurred a lot. You know, and so I'm not going to sit up here and, you know, say that road was easy at all. I had to truly go through I'm from Louisiana, so some learned lessons per se. And that's important because with that growth, I'm able to sit in front of women and have a dialogue and exchange and know that it may not be an overnight thing, but the freedom you gain from it, oh my God.
Yes.
I mean, it's a different thing where you can have people approach you and be like, is something different about you? And that's the truth of it. And I want to share, like, there's certain questions, even when it comes to decisions or people that I interact with. And I have a list of questions, but sometimes I have to recall just simple things. You know, is this aligned with me? You know, or is this person aligned with me? Am I trying to please myself or I'm trying to please others? when I make this decision? Is this a term of short-term gratification, or is this a term of long-term fulfillment? Is it, going back to those commodities, how does this affect my time, my money, my relationships, and my energy? And sometimes these simple questions are a reflection of, at its deeper core, because I really believe women, we're the sum of our parts. You know, that's what, if we're able to operate as a whole person, then, you know, that is one of those cornerstones of improving our health. And I didn't mean to kind of stand on that, but this is, you know, kind of like one of those testimonies where we're not immune even as providers of some of the same things that you are dealing with. So going back to what Candice said, there's no judgment. I can't judge. You know, I can relate. Yes, I might have some initials by my name, but at the same time, there are definitely shared experiences and shared things that make it important for your next breakthrough so you won't have a breakdown. So that was personal for me. So.
Yeah.
I just have to say I agree completely. This is something that I've been learning the last year or so, and my goodness, it's definitely empowering. Yeah. Okay, this next question is for Ronice. What impact does nutrition, timely preventative screenings, and more have on our health, and what steps can we take to prevent small health issues before they escalate into a larger problem?
The first thing we recommend as registered dietitians here in Central Florida, and just a little commercial bit, I want to give the city of Orlando much credit to our presence in Central Florida, because we moved into a food desert community, and the city of Orlando awarded us funding to turn an African American bookstore into a nutrition resource center with test kitchens and community kitchens to teach people how to make those lifestyle changes through food. And if it wasn't for the city commissioners and Mayor Dyer, we would not be here where we are today. So I give them much credit for that. We empower and encourage every female in the room to be the nutritionist of the family. You don't have to have RD, LD behind your name to be the nutritionist, but you do need to set boundaries with not only your husband, your soulmate, but your children. It is well documented that the next generation will not be as healthy as we are or live as long as my 95-year-old mother, who has absolutely nothing wrong with her. She has all her capabilities and still drives and is smaller than me. And she's in great health, but when you look at the next generation of children coming up, I'm worried. I'm very worried. We need our moms and our dads to be the nutritionists of the family. It makes no sense for a 5-year-old telling a 30-year-old what they will eat and what they're not going to eat. Makes no sense. I'm speaking to a few people in the room. So we do that with our wellness classes. We actually have a millennial class coming up in December that teaches the next generation how to make that lifestyle. We realize God didn't make us all to be a size 2, 4, 6, but if you're going to be a 16 or a 14 or a 12, let's be a healthy one, because we got to figure out how we're going to live as long as the future generations, and we're not doing that great a job of it. We see it, we eat it, and we got to focus on balance, lifestyle management, how we cook, how we shop. And you know, I always quote Bill Clinton say, "Don't ask, don't tell." What you put in your food, we don't need to always advertise what's in the food. Just put it out there and make it healthy. And if you're living in food swamps and food deserts, we have to figure out ways to get more access to those healthy items, because at the end of the day, it really does affect our lifestyle and longevity.
Dr. Larissa, how does a woman know she is going through menopause? Is there a way to navigate menopause gracefully? And we also just had somebody who's watching on Facebook Live who asked what a person can take over the counter for after menopause, postmenopausal.
Okay. Ooh. Love these questions. Okay. So we'll start with first. So the average age of menopause is around 51. And a woman, approximately 6,000 women are going to go through menopause every day. And so the pure definition of it is a loss of or cessation of your menstrual cycle for 12 months. But there's a time frame that can last maybe 5, even 10, 12 years on average, what we call perimenopause, going up into that point. So I like to sum it up. Oftentimes people have hot flushes, night sweats, sleep difficulty, changes in your menstruation. You feel like, oh my God, I'm not having out-of-body experiences, what the heck is going on, those type of things in perimenopause and within menopause itself, and then beyond, what we call postmenopause, when you feel like you're beyond that, that time period of the cessation of your cycles. Now, with that being said, I like to talk about body signals, because oftentimes your body is telling you certain things. It's just a matter of whether you decided to listen. And I separated into what I like to call the M's, because people can remember it that way, is that oftentimes you'll see shifts in your mental health. For some reason, you feel more on edge, you feel more anxious, or feel more depressed moods, or you feel like your coping skills have been expanded out in such a way where, you know, like, oh, you just don't feel like yourself. You know, that's what I often get. I just don't feel like myself. Another thing is just the moods. You know, are you someone where you enter a room and it goes empty because you're on a warpath? Or is it a situation where you just feel like, hey, you know, I just, from one edge to the other, you just have these constant oscillations, per se, of your mood, where, you know, crying outbursts or something could be normal as well. Another one is menstruation. I like to describe that as you could either, before that cessation, you end up having irregular cycles. They're a little bit more painful, or they may be less frequent. It just kind of depends, because if you had any particular reproductive problems like endometriosis or fibroids, it may look a little different. But it's kind of, a lot of times people will say, hey, you know, I haven't had my cycle in 6 months. And it's like that bad boyfriend that gives you a call all of a sudden after 6 months. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I thought you were gone. Where did you come from? Just know, you know, that could be normal, but anytime you've had a cessation or absence of cycles for 12 months and it shows up again, that is something abnormal, all right? So make sure that you are paying attention to that and make an appointment right away to get that checked out. Me. And then another one is moisture. Vaginal health is important. Sexual health, intimacy is important for women. And one of those things that can be wrapped into it is urinary problems because of the lack of moisture in your vagina. I think we need to pleasantly say vagina and be okay with saying those things if it's going on down there. Dryness or irritation, or feel like, hey, you know, all of a sudden I'm having yeast infections and I didn't have them, you know, like. These are all things that incorporate with body signals that can happen in your body, and things that just listen to and then be able to have some kind of connection with it as well. Just answering the question from Facebook, I'm very leery about just outwardly saying certain things over the counter, because there is a lot over the counter now. And it's just trying to keep up with a lot of things that have come out in the supplement world. So I would put like a big umbrella or a covering, is that there are definitely supplements out there that can assist and help with different phases or different symptoms of menopause that can be done safely. Also make sure that you have some kind of contact with your medical provider as far as, you know, how that sits in your particular situation. And the reason why that's important, I am so like anti-cookie cutter. You know, I believe that things need to become more individualized and not necessarily put so many broad paintbrushes on things. Yes, there's certain go-tos, like you have a headache, yeah, you can try Tylenol or ibuprofen or something. You know, those are generalizations. But when it comes to certain things that affect your health in such a way that can affect those M's per se, what I find is that oftentimes you'll pick up something, and if it doesn't do it, it's like you give up and you have to, and it's like, oh my goodness, you know, I have to deal with this, because that's a mantra too. Like for some reason you have to deal with it, and you don't. There are good remedies out there. I'm sorry, I don't want to necessarily specify because everybody's a little different. But I do feel like that's a conversation that is no longer taboo, that you can be able to openly speak about it to your provider. And I'm a big one with saying that, you know, and if that doesn't fit, find someone that you can openly have a conversation. The same provider that potentially delivered your babies might be somebody different later. You know, it just kind of depends where you feel comfortable, you know. But it's a time of great transition. I want to leave on that note. It's a time of great transformation, new identity. Women contribute over 80% of consumer dollars. We are rapidly expanding when it comes to women-owned businesses, and largely in women above 40. Women are re-identifying of themselves. So it's a time where it becomes graceful because people are stepping more into their passion and their purpose and understanding that they still want to live life more freely and independently and take care of the grandbabies if they have to. So.
We want to open this up to all of you and see if anybody has any specific questions they want to ask the panel.
When we talk about health inequities, particularly for Black women, what are some of the things you suggest that we look for when selecting our health practitioners, as opposed to, you know, going down a provider list and just picking somebody? What are some of the things that you would suggest we arm ourselves with when we're trying to partner our health with a physician?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question. As a pediatrician, I do recommend that parents go have a meet and greet with different pediatricians before you have your baby, because we do want you to know who that will be before you get to the hospital. And so take your list. Think about who you would want that person to be, what type of relationship you would want to have with this person. So if, for me, for instance, I want to have a Black female OBGYN, right? And so if you want a Black woman like yourself as your pediatrician, or maybe you know you're having a boy, you want a male doctor. So talk to your husband, talk to your partner, think about what you want, and then look for that. Now, some people are limited with their insurances. Once they've gone down that list, there may not be what they're looking for there, and so you're kind of stuck. So then at that point, I would recommend looking at reviews or looking at those names and trying to see what the website or what their information says about them. Does it speak to you? Are they smiling? Are they saying things that seem like they're a warm-hearted or caring provider? Also, word of mouth. It is so important. If people like this person or someone recommended someone to you. So those are definitely key, but it's nothing wrong with going in to try to, especially if you're having a baby, pediatricians do this all the time, have a meet and greet, and you can ask about philosophies, about, you know, parenting or immunizations, or any questions you have that you want to ask of that pediatricians. I do them, not a lot, but sometimes. But I wish people would do them more. Yeah.
Quick question for you. My daughter, she just turned 11. We lost my mom about 3 years ago, and I noticed that she's going through a lot, and I've gone through a lot. And I didn't want to just shut her down, but I told her I wanted to sign her up for therapy, and she was like, "For what?" You know. So I want to know how to approach that to where she can be receptive of coming to be able to sit down and just share, because I noticed a lot has changed with her, and she's just now hitting middle school, so she's going through that and I'm going through that and I'm like, girl. So I'm like, maybe we're gonna talk to somebody, you know.
Yeah. So first thing for yourself, empathy, because I can see that it brought a little of emotion out of you. So just wanted to give you some space to kind of like cool down a little bit. But showing you empathy, a lot of times we don't show kids empathy. And so we have to be as empathetic to them as we are to ourselves. And the first thing that I would probably do to her is tell her what therapy is, right? So I want to give credit to people for practicing emotional and mental wellness in the past year. You guys have been doing a great job with showing up for yourselves. But a lot of times in the last 2 years, we have been just throwing the word therapy without identifying what therapy is. So there's still a stigma out there about therapy. Like, people still think you have to be crazy to see therapists. And you can, because how old is she?
11.
Okay, so being someone who's not a teenager, it's super hard doing therapy with adolescents. So you kind of like want to give her some information about therapy. So approaching her with, this is what I've learned about what we've gone through in the past year since we've lost someone, and this is the things that I've heard that will help us feel better, because you have to speak to her language, obviously. So will help us feel better about losing this person. And then you can try to do some self-help. A therapist is going to teach you this anyways, but you can try to do some self-help. And I always suggest books. Books is like the first stage to educating kids in general, because it speaks to them. There's pictures that help them kind of like paint the picture. So giving books first, and then inching onto, I want us to see, remember when I brought up the conversation about this person that helps? I want us to go see someone who can also help us together. We don't have to do it together. You can do it by yourself. And if you don't like it, you can just let me know. So just showing her empathy, because therapy is something that is aligned with the crazies, right? When in reality, it's supposed to align with anything that is emotionally making life a little overwhelming for you. So you can give her that 11-year-old, 12-year-old safe conversation about therapy, and just ask her, how does she feel about it? And encourage her, I can go with you. I always encourage parents to be in the first session. That way they feel comfortable. And if, of course, there are kids who are comfortable with their parents being in a room, so giving her the option to not have you there as well.
But I want to give you credit
Yeah.
for recognizing
That takes a lot.
that you guys are grieving, and there are stages to that, and picking up on that your child is showing symptoms of this loss, and that is the way she's grieving, and that it may harm her, so she needs help and you need help. That is so
That's
huge.
strong. That's strong.
So huge. And even though it will take you work to get her there, as a parent, you set the expectation in your mind, your will, this is going to happen, and then do all the Jedi mind tricks you need to do to get her there.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's what we have to do.
With the last question that you asked, when you guys are looking for a therapist, I want to encourage you guys to look into expertise. So we, for a very long time, were put under a blanket of this person is a therapist, where there is mental health, there is social work, there is marriage and family. Just because you are a marriage and family therapist, it doesn't mean you can't help an individual. It means the individual, the therapist themselves, can help an individual navigate their relationships. Relationships aren't only romantic. And then family, which is the people who impact you that encourage you to see therapy. So when you're thinking about expertise, you have to dig a little deeper, right? Does this therapist know how to work with someone who's dealing with grief? Does this therapist know how to work with someone who has depression and anxiety? And we're going to go through a subset, right? So my specialty is in Black and Caribbean individuals. I took years out of my life dedicated to working with Black people with ethnic considerations. So that means I might not be the best fit to be a therapist for a white person. Can I? Yes, right? Because I'm taught to provide therapy to everyone. But I wanted to dig a little deeper and think about the ethnic considerations of your cultural background and how that influences some of the decision making that you have throughout your lifespan, right? So when you're looking into expertise, does this person know how to navigate the Black cultural experience? Do you know how to navigate my Jamaican influence? Do you know how to navigate my African influence, right? Because those things, life is different when you add subsets, the intersectionalities of your life. And it's important for you to have someone who can help you navigate that so that when you go into therapy, you don't become resentful of the person who couldn't help you navigate those additional intersectionalities.
Absolutely.
That's good.
I got one quick question. Can I use the word life coach and therapy synonymously?
So there are we become life coaches. I'm gonna be real with you. We end up coaching you through your life. The only
Because of the word therapy is such a stigma, but
I know that it makes people comfortable. I think the distinction is that therapists have to undergo a specific amount of years to receive.
I do respect that.
Yeah, to receive their education, but we also have to use interventions. Life coaches don't necessarily have to use an intervention, but we have to use things that are evidence-based to guide you through your process. And of course, people like me, for example, because there's no book on working with Black people, right?
That's right.
So I have to kind of like navigate from my therapeutic experience to provide culturally sound therapy to individuals who are Black and Caribbean. So because of that, you know, there's something called like, there's CBT, and there are individuals in Europe who decided to, in Eastern Asia, who decided to adapt it into a way that's beneficial for Asian people. And they're like, so we're gonna add some spiritual things in here because Asian people really align with their spiritual beliefs. So if we teach a monk how to treat depression, more people who are Asian will go to therapy. So my cultural background is Haitian. If I teach a voodoo priest how to treat depression, more people who are within that space in wherever that is in Haiti will more likely work on their depression and anxiety. So there are culturally adaptive things that we have to do. So you can go to a life coach. Don't get me wrong, you can. Life coaches cannot treat the emotional side. They can only treat life. So if you're emotionally impacted by life, a therapist is super helpful.
I just wanted to affirm something really quickly that Dr. Jones said about reaching out beyond your family for help. And I talk to so many young women that call me and they say, you know, I'm struggling, I never get any time by myself. I was in a position where I would have to be in Tallahassee for 60 days at a time. And I literally had my son's friends, mothers, call me together and say, I just want you to know we have your son. We are gonna take care of your child. We're gonna make sure he gets to school, he gets home, he does his homework. And I had only known these women for maybe a year or so, and I trusted them because I watched the way that they raised their own children, and I literally handed my child over. And I'm finding that young people and so many people are so uncomfortable with the fact that it has to be a family member. And I understand the stigma of things that happen when people are outside of family, but we have to let go and understand that these people are, I feel like everybody is in your life for a reason. So when they offered that to me, I took it and they literally just gave me such peace. I literally cried when they offered it to me. But I accepted it, and it was the best decision I ever made.
I'll be the one to tell you that close friends have been more family to me than family. Like my best friend's mom threw me a graduation party after I lost my mother, and that was the most heartfelt thing that someone's mother could do for me. She's like, you know what? I'm taking over the role of your mom now. And ever since then, she's been like, I don't even bother calling her second mom. She's mom.
My name is Dr. Laguerre, and Commissioner Burns invited me out today. I'm very happy I came. He invited me because I'm bringing my practice into the Paramore area, and so I have a lot of passion for that zip code, and food is everything. So I definitely would love to talk to the panelists after and just exchange information, because I'm going to need help in bringing what I'm trying to bring to Paramore. But one thing I wanted to touch on 3 points. The first thing, food is very, very important. It is the foundation and the building blocks to our health. And as a physician, I'm a nephrologist, and I realized one day that we as physicians, and you doctors can attest, we're not really taught nutrition in medical school. One day I was watching a Dr. Sebi video, who is this doctor who's not a physician but really was into food, and a tear came out of my eye because I realized that my entire medical education was geared towards big pharma, was geared towards prescriptions. Now I prescribe, my medications very well, but I said there's got to be something else that I can give to people to help them. And food is key. So I think that when we're talking to our physicians and being a physician, we have to really understand the chemistry of food. So that was one point that I wanted to bring up. And the second point, earlier in the questions, we asked what you should do as a patient when you go to see your doctor, which I think is an excellent question, because medicine and the whole big picture of medicine is the only industry where people walk in and just take everything. When you go shopping, you look at something and you say, well, how much is that? And you look at the price and you decide whether you want it. But when it comes to your health, when you walk into the emergency room, you get a chest x-ray, you get a head CT, you get an MRI, you get poked and prodded, and in the end of the day, you don't even know how much all of it is. You don't know, you don't know if you really need it. Oftentimes, you don't really need it. The ER is a quick, fast pace. When you get to the floor, it's like, well, why didn't you get this? And then we start the process again. So it's really important that patients ask questions, but it's easier said than done, because I pride myself on educating my patients, because a lot of the time patients don't even know what to ask.
True.
So one thing that I would say, if you could do when you're going to see your provider, is take your medications with you. If you're on medications, bring all the medications that you've ever taken, the old expired ones in the back of the closet, bring all of that with you, because from that medication bag alone, we as physicians can determine what you've been diagnosed with, what you have. Because a lot of times patients don't even know that this bottle is for their blood pressure, that bottle is for, headaches. I've had patients, when I look at their meds, they have 2 different types of ibuprofens, and they say, well, this one's for this and this one's for that, but they're both the same class of drugs. So one thing I would recommend people do when they go to see their practitioners is bring your medications. And finally, I just wanted to bring out something that I learned the hard way last year, and it's about asset protection. So I was getting my car washed, and I was mentioning to the ladies at the table, last year I was getting my car washed, and somebody hit me from behind in the car wash machine, which left me like short-term disabled. I mean, it snapped my neck, I had different types of tears, I had whiplash, I couldn't lift weights, I couldn't do repetitive bending, I couldn't work at the hospital. And I had a short-term disability policy, but it didn't kick in till January, and the incident happened in December. Now, I'm grateful to God that I have different streams of income that were able to carry me through. But one thing I wanted to bring up and encourage everybody in the room to do is get asset protection. So I had some, currently I'm using different agencies, but I asked Affleck, because they are very inexpensive and they work very well with companies, to come to my office and register my employees with different policies that fit them best. So you don't have to use Affleck, but definitely protect your paycheck, because if something like that happens, I mean, it was no fault of mine that somebody hit me from behind in the car wash of all places, and he said, oh, I put my car in drive instead of neutral, and there it changed the whole course of my life and my profession. So I mean, for something like Affleck, a company like Affleck, they will offer your employees or you as a person $20, $30 a paycheck. I know it sounds little, it may not be for everybody, but $20, $30 a paycheck to protect your asset, to protect your paycheck. So they have accident policies, they have cancer policies, they have short-term disability, and I think that's important for us as a community to start getting insured, because if something happens to you like that and you can't go to work for 6 months, then what do you do? So that's just what I wanted to share with the room.
I thought that was really great, and thank you for sharing that, Doc, because the first thing that came to my mind when you said that was self-care. Because oftentimes we want to put self-care is, okay, I went to sleep, or I went out with my girlfriends, or went to a spa, but some of the most ideal things that we need to do, like asset protection, is a form of self-care in its most purest form, because you're taking care of something that could totally change the trajectory of, like you said, your business or your whether you can show up at your job or not. Like, all of those things are just so vital and important. And I would be amiss if I didn't at least touch on how science is expanding and moving, because one of the currents and the themes have been food, and I truly believe food is thy medicine, and very at its foundational standpoint. But there are definitely some navigations that are taking place currently that I want, as a Black community, to always be leery of some of these things, or be knowledgeable, or try to be a step ahead. And one of those things has to do with, especially when we're talking about women, is that the femtech and the fem health industry is large. It's like really picking up steam. And what I mean by that is these are services or products put under an umbrella to help toward health of women. There's major dollars that are coming behind it. This is from a fertility standpoint, from a menopausal standpoint. And what we're finding is that even amongst some of these areas of social determinants of health, these are areas that are still lacking some of the funds. And some of that has to do with awareness, policy, advocacy, or what have you. And it's very important because a lot of times, especially coming out of a pandemic, we're in a pandemic, there are different modalities of how you should see medicine or your health. And Dr. Candice had mentioned it earlier. This is the month of October, is bringing awareness not only for breast cancer, menopause, or just women's health is becoming more of a forefront, period. But understand, we have to even think beyond a mammogram. We have to think beyond just a Pap. And I'm sitting here as an OBGYN saying that because those are screening wellness tests that you only do once a year. The gaps of opportunity is everything that happens in between. So the choices that we make as far as nutrition impacts even at a genetic level, and that's part of what I said. And she's so right. Like all the things about therapy and mental health, that was like one of those checkbox on the standardized test as an option, but wasn't really instructed. So this is extra additional education that we had to seek out, because what we're learning is that even on a genetic level, we have a blueprint, and that nutrition or what we expose can change what we call epigenetics of what happens above the blueprint. I'm not trying to get nerdy on you, but it's really important because it does factor into why there's more chronic disease like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and everything within these deserts that we have because of these potential genetic changes that are happening because of the environment that we live in. And so being able to build collectively as a community is going to be vital. And there are movements going on from Fort Worth as well as I think Miami. You have what they call a blue zone theory, where you're culturally trying to make sure there's not only the evidence of longevity and living a quality of life, but you're pouring into from a standpoint of advocacy, like it's an all buy-in of making sure everyone has things that can be able to live a more quality and a long lifespan. From purpose, from getting foods that you need, making sure there's active movement and everything. So these are things that I like to share because they're not talked about as much, but it's going on. They said any pivot or change in medicine usually takes maybe 2 decades. But understand, just even starting those conversations and the dialogue can really help us move more toward getting some of those long range things that can affect our generations, because it happens in the womb, and that's what we're finding, even from the time you're pregnant. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
We are going to wrap this up, but first I want to invite Ronice to have some closing remarks. Okay. Do you have it?
Yeah. So I know we're wrapping up, but we have one question from Facebook, and I guess it's for you, Dr. Ferdinand. What can this constituent take, like postmenopausal over-the-counter for dryness?
For what now?
For dryness. I know you can't give like exact medical advice.
Yeah. There is, if you're just talking about water-based lubricants, that's fine, but there are even better products that are from an online product that usually comes up and it's safe and it's natural. But if I don't want to say Google, but it's a line of products that I've even recommended to clients and patients that are natural based. And they have great reviews. And so, but it's online. Any of the things that I think are reputable oftentimes need to be discussed even, with a provider. But some of the best things are actually online. I hate to say it's the online product that I usually recommend. All right.
I want to thank everyone on our panel, these wonderful ladies, Dr. Jones, Dr. Ferdinand, Dr. Shirley, and our sponsor with Ebony Nutrition Consultants and my partner, Fabiola Gaines, as being moderators and hosts, our beautiful host, Christy Kern with Fox 35. I just want to acknowledge these wonderful ladies to speak at the first Girl Talk Luncheon. I know each and every one of you have gotten nuggets of knowledge that you can now take back home to your family and your workplace. Women are caregivers, but we also take charge of the people in our lives at work or even at home. So we appreciate each and every one of you that taking the time out to attend this first event. And I'm sure we will see much more of these events in the months to come. I also want to thank our sponsors, Ebony Nutrition Consultants. Fabiola had to step out. How many of you guys enjoyed that ice cream, Smile Ice Cream? I want to also let you know, Glenn with Smile Ice Cream, he is actually my boss. He is our executive director with Ebony Nutrition Consultants, but he does have the ice cream business, a startup micro business that he started in our office, and he shared with you some of his most popular flavors today. So you can reach him at smileicecream.co, not com, but .co if you want to place orders for ice cream. We also have sponsors, our sponsors More Light, Simply Healthcare, Decor by Aaliyah. We thank you for the beautiful room, and the delicious food with CB Catering, City of Orlando with Commissioner Bakari Burns, our audio-visual team with Seer Productions, and Creative Beauty with our chair coverings. So we thank you, and we have some gifts for our panelists. Carolyn, who has been the most visionary person, thank you, Carolyn, for creating the vision of Girl Talk.